hosts it is. Why, thank you, Nighthawk. Welcome to Plato's Cave on WZZR. Coming to you from Australia, the land down under, for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That's right, not some kind of fake land, and we're not sitting in some kind of underground bunker, crisis acting our way through the show.
Oh, that'd be good, though. It'd be good.
You're falling off the edge, buddy. Hey, It is home to fresh ideas, uncensored, pretty much, conversations, and also a place to get your merch if you're so inclined. Go and visit the website. Visit the website. Now, having said that, the station is not actually sponsored by anyone. Doesn't really carry any corporate advertising either, so it does require your support, which means if you can support the station, please do so, but maybe you can't because things are tough all over. I get it, I dig it, man, I understand you. I feel your pain, oh, believe you me. But maybe you can tell your friends and family about this, and maybe one of those good people can donate to the station. Every dollar counts. Keep those electrons popping in and out of existence. In that copper, just do the pop, 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 pop. Today is the 11th of July, 2023. 2023. Where's my flying car? You can catch the cave on air, online, on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere. I listen at home on the Grace Table of Digital Radio. That's very fast. Archives are free. So go and have a look at the archives. Another good reason to donate, because it costs you nothing to look at all the old shows. So please go ahead and do that. Do that voodoo that you do so well. But before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast, Dave.
And for me, it's the Dark and Jar.
Thank you, sir. For myself, of course, the Rock Mob. And we would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Future. I tell you what, Dave.
What?
I was thinking today.
Uh-oh.
So, don't do that. and it's easy to get sidetracked. We discussed this before, but the intent of Plato's Cave is almost 2 years, by the way. Is and has always been to attempt to at least lift the curtain a little at the corner to show you what's behind the Flim Flam show, if we can. Or at least make you aware there's a Flim Flam show. And we get sucked into life, though, Dave, don't we? We get sucked back into life where we worry about little things, right? Look, I don't want to speak out of turn here, or but you work, and work is work, and there's some issues at work, and you get sucked into that, right? And before you know it, I know you do, I do. You're on a whole different path, and you start worrying and thinking about stuff that doesn't matter at all. We'll talk about that, though, in show 600.
Ooh.
Blatant and shameless cross-promotion of our other platform show, I should say, on this platform. Because we'll talk about that a lot. But Dave, the distractions, I mean, how do you center yourself when you become distracted with the noise? What advice would you give people to center themselves?
Oh wow, that's a very good question. Okay, so go back to what you know, and then re-branch out again. That's another way to center. Listen to your favorite music, which reminds you of a time when we didn't have this complexity. Right? That's another good way of grounding yourself. Taking your shoes off and standing in the dirt, actually, is and being there in the moment, wherever you are, and whatever's going on right now, you should be there. Because I watched an old 1950s propaganda, how to tell propaganda from real information. And it was done by the US military.
Nice.
During the Cold War. Ooh, wow, wee. That was something else. And almost every single point that they made is currently how our mainstream media is delivering news. Isn't that crazy? I'll send you the link after the show, and we can talk about it on Thursday. But good morning to everyone in the US, by the way, especially Eastern, because you've got a nice cup of coffee, possibly, or some tea, and turn the radio on. Here we are. Because I don't know about you, Becky, though. Tell me, how do you find balance and center?
I'm not pretending that I do. I do try, obviously, as you should, but I need to rein myself in, because sometimes things can be overwhelming. You could be facing difficulties or some challenges that you think all of a sudden, and it's really that. And Bill Hicks put it beautifully, right?
Oh yes.
I remember I loved his act. Phenomenal comedian, philosopher, really. Anyway, the point is, he said, "Oh, look at me! I got these worry lines in my face. Ooh, I'm important. Ooh, I gotta make some money. Oh, and I'm gonna have stuff. Give me more stuff." I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "No, let's just, let's be free. Let's all just be free and explore the inner and the outer verse forever. Let's just do that." And he's got a very good point, because this cave, if you will, we find ourselves in, is not real. It is real in the sense that it can damage us. I think very much it can damage us, but it's not real in the sense that this is not our actual home per se. Maybe for some of us it is, but I think for a fairly good chunk of us it is not. And we are here. Well, I don't know why. Right? We figured out why we're here, but we don't know why we're here. If you get my meaning, it's got to do with superposition and collapsing the probability curve into one observed outcome, which is this. That's why we've been indoctrinated from childhood. That's why our physical form is the way it is. Right from the get-go, right down to our genetics. We're pre-programmed to ensure that this reality continues to exist. Why? It's a big mystery to me. Now, when I say this reality, this is important to understand. I don't mean this one reality. I think that there are many realities. Think of it as a book that are close by one another, and we constantly slip in and out of them. We constantly slip in and out of these realities, like sliders, if you will. That did, initially quite good show, which turned quite horrible in the last seasons. But we are sliding in and out of these realities, which are exactly the same as ours, except maybe for a couple of things, or one thing, or a thing that you will never ever even know. And I think this happens a lot, because I've noticed different things in my life. And people say, you just misremembered, or you're crazy, or whatever it might be, right? And maybe, hey, I'm open to all explanations. But I like to go with Occam's razor. And in my opinion, Occam's razor is I'm sliding between realities. Now, they're all very much like the one you're in, but like I said, there's slight differences. So that's what I mean. So that's the cage we're in. It's actually it's a 5-dimensional cage, if you will. And I believe when we dream, we break free of the 5-dimensional cage, because our dreams make no sense at all when we wake up. None. Zero. If we're sliding in and out of realities, they're close by, I guess, in a physical sense, so it's easy to slide in and out. And they all make sense to us. So you don't get, no, for the most part, we don't wake up in a reality where nothing makes sense. Some beautiful stories were written about this, but I don't think that's the case for most people. But in your dreams, you're very much out of that 5-dimensional cage. Now, what do I mean by 5-dimensional? Just very quickly, then I want to throw it to my esteemed colleague. You've got space, 3 dimensions at right angles to each other. We're all familiar with that, right? Makes sense? Dig it. Cool. All right. Now, on a right angle to that, to the 3-dimension, is time. The time dimension, in my time, duration, let's call it, okay? Which is, it is an illusion in that it only seems to allow motion in one direction. Now, duration itself is not an illusion, but the motion of the duration is an illusion. I know it So just bear with me. Okay, so this is the four-dimensional space-time continuum we find ourselves in. I believe there's a fifth dimension at a right angle again to the other four, which stacks these four-dimensional spaces like cubes, books, bubbles, I don't care what you call it, next to each other, so you can potentially move between them in the fifth dimension. And there are further dimensions beyond that, always, in my opinion, at a right angle to the previous ones. Now, of course, it's not possible. You can't have that many right angles. Well, in our understanding of geometry, you cannot. But in the higher dimensional spaces, you absolutely can. So, it is our opinion, it is our duty to get out of this five-dimensional cage. So you can slide and slip between dimensions as much as you like, as long as you stay within the five-dimensional cage. When you get out of the five-dimensional cage, that's when the problems start for this place. Because I don't think a lot of people want to come back. Because in your dreams, and I'm not talking about nightmares, but dreams, especially if you're a lucid dreamer, it's amazing, isn't it? Like you're going somewhere and it's completely different to anything, you know, but it just, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I like it here. It makes great sense. Thank you very much. And that's the kind of mind we have. Our mind is equipped to deal with situations and circumstances which are completely nonsensical in our waking state. In our waking state, our mind is handicapped. We're all Earth is a sheltered workplace. We're all mentally retarded. We are, just by being here. The dream, when you sleep, that retardation disappears. It lifts off you. It lifts off you and you're free. Okay, there are different levels of retardation that this realm imposes upon people, but rest assured, we are not mentally fully awake and aware and capable when we are in fact conscious. There you go, Dave. What do you reckon? that's how I said that myself.
All right. I have to take my flak jacket off now. Good grief. Oh, I don't know. You just keep rolling.
I'll roll. Let's roll. Now, the funny thing is this. I'm not the only one that says this, obviously. Right? There are many secret societies, brotherhoods, sisterhoods, the initiates, I don't care, whatever they call themselves. And they all transmit similar information. And the similar information is this. This is not the real world. It can be, it could be. We could make it that. We could make it that if we all pulled together in the same direction. If we could all leave behind greed and ego, self-interest, if we could do that, then we could make this home. You know, good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
But another interesting feature that most mystery schools reveal to you once you become initiated is that we are reincarnated over and over and over again. Now, some religions very openly ask you to, well, you know, not to be reincarnated anymore. You have to get off this wheel, as they call it. Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, etc. They're quite open about it. Most religions, including Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, had reincarnation as one of their tenets. No, Mackie, that's not true. No, it actually is. Look it up. Do your own research. It is absolutely true. And I'm not just talking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ at all. No. Everybody is reincarnated. Interesting subject, but I won't get into this right now. So it's this idea that we are reincarnated into this wheel of distress, which forces us down a certain path of spiritual solitude, not solitude, that's the wrong word. Spiritual, what's the best word? I want to say, we are wasting away spiritually, essentially is what I'm trying to say to you, right? In the world that we live in, especially now, the spiritual side, and I don't mean religious, is completely disregarded. I mean, people look at you like you're goofy when you say, or meditate, or I mean, it's becoming more acceptable these days. But for a long time, no, what do you mean you meditate? What does that mean? Some kind of commie pinko? What are you? Yeah, it's my rainbow flag. And people just don't buy into it because they were conditioned out of it. And men don't cry. You know that, Dave? Men don't cry. Men don't show emotions because that doesn't cause any issues ever. when you bottle up all your feelings, right? That's a good thing. You should bottle it up. Yeah. But we are getting smarter, I think, that way. Now, I don't want to go overboard with that either, because I mean, feelings are ultimately not what should guide us. I mean, feelings are important, emotions are important, but we still need to be guided by our, somewhat higher selves that can make good decisions, not just decisions based on feelings, right? In my opinion, the next level of evolution is intuition. When you make the right decision intuitively, you just know it. And this is always killed me. You always have to show your work. Remember in school, Dave?
Yeah.
They always ask you to show your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't always show my work. That's the answer here. Here it is. No, where's your work? I can't write it all down. Is this right? Yes. Okay, well then, no, I need to see how you, well, I can't explain to you how I got it. I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
Right? That's no good. That's absolutely no good to anyone. So that was a problem for me, right? Showing your work, because I make intuitive leaps all the time. The biggest one, as you might recall, was around the awareness cascade, which we predicted would happen in 2020, or something would happen in 2020, and something certainly did. And that was an intuitive leap. And I'll tell you how I got there. There's this writer called Robert Bloch. Bloch. Can you say it? Say it with me, Bloch. He wrote Psycho. He's the guy that actually wrote Psycho. The book, and this was made into quite a successful Alfred Hitchcock movie, Psycho. So he also wrote a short story, many short stories, in fact, but he wrote this one short story called Phoenix, science fiction, as it were, where he postulated that the human race was in fact a phoenix. He would talk, and he told the story from the perspective of an immortal human being that had lived through, a number of different civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, etc., all the way and further back. And he said, we are the human race. We are the true phoenix. We destroy ourselves, and then we rise from the ashes with absolutely no memory of what went before, or no concrete memory. Legends and myths persist, and to me that made a lot of sense. I was very young when I read it for the first time. I want to say probably 13 or something like that, and it made an impression on me. And I thought to myself, that's actually not a bad explanation, right? And I was interested in Atlantis already. I was always in the Triangle. I had started reading Charles Burns when I was 8, and when I read Bloch's story, which mind you was just a story, right? That scenario made a lot of sense to me. But then I asked myself, why? Why are we destroying ourselves? Why are we being destroyed every 20,000, 25,000 years, whatever it is? Why? And that started me down another track. Well, if we need to be destroyed, and people need to be killed, or the energy levels need to be low, or whatever it is, then what would happen if we weren't destroyed? What would happen if we didn't go through an apocalyptic scenario, like a flood or an atomic war or an asteroid impact or whatever it might be? What if we were allowed to continue our development? And I think that has happened in the past. I think we made it to the stars, and I think some of us, and that's why we have the stories, actually escaped a 5-dimensional cage we find ourselves in. So you can see it's a fairly straightforward thing that I believe, fairly straightforward philosophy. And then, of course, the question raised itself: what if individually we were allowed to live. And Dave and I did a number of shows on this. The Shining Side Out segment. And what would happen if we were allowed to live beyond the age of 100? Who knows? But not just live beyond a certain age, but also live beyond the age of 100 or 200 healthily. So what if we could arrest the aging process at whatever age? I mean, you want to be healthy, and and you want to be able-bodied and able-minded. I mean, what's the point of being long-lived or immortal if you're not? But what if we could stop the telomere decay? What if you could switch telomerase back on, and whatever enzymes, whatever other chemicals or genetic modifications we need? But I think that's a big one. Right? Now, and then we postulated something like this. You're born and you grow. And if your generation never lived past the age of 12, you would never understand what puberty means. You just wouldn't know. Okay, but let's say you do. You live past the age of 12, 13, 14, 15, your puberty. Your body changes. Your body changes. In fact, before that, you have baby teeth. The baby teeth are there for a little while until the age of 12 or 13. That's when most baby teeth are gone and replaced by your permanent teeth. They call them permanent teeth. So you start with a set of baby teeth, but your body changes. Switches are thrown inside. You don't do it. Your body does it for you. And it pushes out the baby teeth as your skull grows, and it puts a set of regular adult teeth in as you grow. Right? And then, as I said, puberty starts. Oh, your body starts. Oh my God, but what's happening with my body? The change for women is more dramatic than it is for men, but it's still a dramatic change for both sexes. Women start growing, and all of a sudden you start sprouting hair in funny places. Your voice changes. Hormones are raging through your body, and you're very emotional, and everything is a problem. Everybody wants, your parents don't understand you. Even when they do, they don't. It's just, and everything changes. Everything changes. And then after a few years, you sort of settle down. Like, oh, I'm an adult now. Okay, you've grown your hair in funny places, and your voice has, maybe become deeper. If you're a woman, you might be, sporting some, feminine attributes, and then we keep on developing. Still it goes, and for women another big change happens. Menopause. Imagine everybody dies at the age of 35 or 30. We'd have no knowledge of menopause. We wouldn't.
That's right.
Unless we've got some really early onset menopause. My heart goes out to you if you're one of those. But we wouldn't know, Dave. We would not know menopause.
Totally.
But we do live. Yeah, but we live even longer as people experience menopause. Right? Now, always bearing in mind that at the age of 22, 23, even earlier in some cases, telomerase is switched off. Now, telomerase is an enzyme that coats your telomeres. Your telomeres are the little strands of junk DNA, they used to call it, that sits off the end of your useful DNA and protects it in the copying process. Okay, so each time your cells divide, they copy all the DNA across, and essentially the telomeres ensure that your actual useful DNA doesn't get damaged. But as you get older, as I said, telomerase is switched off, so no longer are the telomeres protected, and in each copying process they get shorter. That's aging. That's aging. Okay, the imperfect copying process. Other things happen as well. Imperfectly copied cell could mutate and cause cancer or other degenerative diseases. But the most insidious thing it does is aging. What if we arrest aging? We say, okay, now we're going to switch telomerase back on. Telomeres are protected. There shouldn't be any problems with copying. Therefore, there shouldn't be any problems with cancers, right? Unless you happen to live in Chernobyl or somewhere and get a unhealthy dose of radiation. I mean, that's just there's not much you can do about that. But your body stops aging, and your cell replication remains perfect. We have now done away with the Hayflick limit, because we've left the telomerase switched on. Who is to say that at the age of now with telomerase on and everything, and maybe the aging process won't be arrested, but slowed down massively, right? Because there might be environmental factors, sunlight, etc. Those things can age you as well. Other things as well. But your cells can still mutate. Again, strong radiation, toxins, environmental poisons, all kinds of things. They can all kill you. But at least your body is not giving up on you. Okay? And who's to say that at the age of 100, in that state, or 150, or 200, you don't go through another stage of development? Ooh.
Yeah.
That's crazy talk, Dave. But who's to say?
It's possible.
We don't know. I can say whatever I like because we don't know, right? But is it possible? Because this is the interesting thing, right? You look at the and this is the idea came to me when Dave and I were discussing the Anunnaki. And you look at the ancient carvings that they have, all the ancient frescoes and on the temples that still survive to this day. The humans, or what we think might be the humans, in relation to the gods, or what we think are the Anunnaki, they look like children. So the fully grown humans, in comparison to the Anunnaki, are the size of 8-9-year-old children, something like that. Right?
Yeah.
In fact, we know, we don't know, but we strongly suspect that these are grown adults because lions and buffalo and other animals are the right size in relation to the humans, which are smaller than the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are picking up lions like we would pick up a cat, for example. That's about the size difference, right? So who's to say that if we were allowed to age, I'm going to call it naturally because what's happening to us right now, in my opinion, is completely unnatural. But if we were allowed to age naturally, then maybe we would grow bigger. Maybe we would grow another set of teeth, and maybe we would grow a number of rows of teeth, because there have been, now none of these have survived and no one has seen it, but there have been reports of skeletons of giants, if you will, with more than one row of teeth, just like sharks, right? And as the shark loses a tooth, the next tooth moves up. I mean, that's a very elegant solution as far as I'm concerned. Better than not having any, right? I mean, that makes sense. So, and then what is next? What are the next developments? Are we then the giants? And Dave actually asked that question a number of times. I don't know if you remember this on air. Dave said, what if we are the giants? What if we are the giants? And I think there's a good chance that we are, except, of course, not us, because we're not the Adamic race.
That's right.
Now, I think that the Adamic, when I say, I don't mean, I know this is, I don't want you to confuse this with what the Bible tells us. When I say the Adamic race, I mean the first race that we know about that was, for all intents and purposes, most likely made by the Anunnaki or modified. Because the Igigi didn't want to work anymore, and the Anunnaki go, oh no, sorry, Igigi, we make you work so hard. Let's just create these people and they work for you. Always bearing in mind that they used their own DNA to create the worker race. And after the flood, you know what happened? Ooh, I don't think we should live past 100.
That's right. We were running amok.
They're running amok, right? And all of these things that were done and are still being done, in my opinion, to keep us down, to keep us on the surface of this planet, like the third world nation we are, all of us. Right? It's still happening. And it was a deliberate thing that was done to us, because we are not the Adamic race. We are the race that came into being after the flood, which was, again, heavily modified from the original stock, in my opinion. Now, modified in that our DNA can't express itself. Not modified in a way that it cannot express itself, but it just doesn't at the moment, because certain, I guess, enzymes or other proteins or other chemicals, hormones for that matter, might be inhibiting the true expression of our genetic potential. Whoa! Now, that's on top of the fact that we are in a 5-dimensional cage. So, what? I mean, if we could live that long, why wouldn't we grow? Why not? Let me give you an example. There's this movie recently that came out, Megalodon, I think it was. It's this massive shark that used to exist or coexist with the dinosaurs, right? Like a long time ago. It's massive, huge. It was a gigantic shark. It was bigger than a boat, bigger than a white pointer, huge. But it was a shark. The shark was a shark was a shark. And today, sharks are much smaller, but they're still sharks. Same goes for crocodiles. Used to be massive crocodiles in the olden days, massive. Now they're smaller, but they're still crocodiles. Why is it so hard to think there was a race of giants? And in fact, it was us that was this race of giants. Because a lot of people talk about, the composition of the bones and how we can't go to a certain height, etc., etc. So the truth is that people that grow to a very tall stature, I mean freakishly tall, right? They do have problems. They do. They have problems with their bones and ligaments specifically, but I think that's because our genetic potential has been toned down.
Yeah.
They are not allowed to grow ligaments strong enough and bones strong enough to support the weight that they have. Okay. Elephants, giraffes, dinosaurs, for crying out loud. Dinosaurs were massive. People theorized that gravity must have been a lot less.
Oh, that's just so ridiculous. Yeah.
Because they're just too big. They collapse under their own weight. Well, not if the internal structures are such that they don't. We are looking at everything from our very limited perspective. Very limited. Right? And we make up all these rules and laws. And say, oh, this is how it is, and you can't go faster than 80 miles an hour, and you can never be taller than 5 meters, and you just collapse under your own weight, blah, 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 all that nonsense. You know what's interesting, Dave?
What is it?
We had Lloyd Pye on the show before he passed.
That's so true, we did.
And I had met Lloyd before he came on the show. I actually met him in Lidcombe. He was talking at the Workers' Club, and I had seen him at the Nexus conference before that. So I sort of, stalked him. Not really, no. But the point is this: when he spoke to us, and in his talks that he gave as well back then, there was a very interesting statement he made about the Star Child's skull. And Star Child was never his idea, by the way. But everybody knows what I mean when I'm talking about it. And his wife says they don't really have anything to do with it anymore. Or someone else took it over. And it's all just anyway. It's unfortunate, but we are where we are. But the point is this: the skull was not bone. It was closer to enamel, or material that your teeth are made from. So it was very, very thin. Okay, and therefore it housed a lot more brain. But not only was it thin, it was stronger than our bone. And not only was it enamel-like in structure, but it had fibers running through it, reinforcing the skull. And it was really hard to cut, he said. It was really hard to cut, even with a diamond saw. It was very difficult to cut through the skull.
Not like just regular bone. And the bone contained more estrogen.
Yes.
Which is how we have tooth enamel.
That's it. And we still don't know, because the research has stopped on the skull. Stopped. And that's such a shame, I have to say. And he never looked. It came to him because he was interested in Bigfoot. That's how he came.
That's right.
Anyway, but the point is this: for every engineering problem in nature, there are several solutions. Right? Okay, if you're a very large creature, then maybe you need denser bones, stronger ligaments, reinforcing material inside your bone. Birds need to fly. So their bones are hollow and very light. Dave wants to float into space. Therefore, his bones are porous. I'm kidding, Dave. I'm sorry. But they are.
I want to grow a tooth in my brain and my lungs.
There's no bones left. No, but the point is that there are design parameters across anything in nature, right? And for the longest time, we didn't know how certain creatures flew, right? The bee, for example, we discussed this at some other point. But flight was solved in many different ways by nature, as an engineering problem, if you want to look that way, right? And swimming, same thing. Creatures swim in very different ways, right? And creatures walk and run and fly in very different ways, right? And who's to say that you can't solve the bioengineering problem of a 10-foot or 15-foot or 20-foot tall human being? Of course you can. Of course you can. Of course you can. Right? And then when you start going down along those lines, things get very complicated. Right? Who are the real inhabitants? Who are the real people that belong to the earth? Because we don't. I tell you right now, we don't belong here. And I don't just mean this from a 5-dimensional point of view, but our structure, the way we are, weak, inefficient, right? And nowhere near at the apex of the food chain. Nowhere near. Nowhere near. We're clever. You know, we invent things and then we kill things off. But just from a physical point of view, we are nowhere near the apex. Right? And yet here we are. Right? Here we are. And we had a lot of help along the way, Dave, as well. Because they told us, we were taught this and we're given that, and we're given a leg up over here. And you know, I think it still happens. But the whole thing just feels wrong. I think the original inhabitants of this planet, this particular planet, are in fact the people we call Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, you know, Yeti. I think they're the original inhabitants. I also believe that it was their material, genetic that is, material that was mixed with the material of the Anunnaki to create the first Adamic race and then the second us race. And maybe, you know what, before that, maybe many times before that. Maybe the Anunnaki themselves were put together by someone else again. Much further in the dim and distant past. Because you know what's funny about the gods, Dave?
What's that?
They still act like us. They still act like Muppets. Okay?
You know the stories that remain all across the world is that we were made in their image. That's the simplification of it. But to be made in their image, if you were thinking of how can you explain it to somebody else who doesn't have any technology? Well, that's probably what you would say. Yeah, we're made with using their DNA.
Yeah.
So we're little copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've been modded. We've been gimped, if you like that expression. So, you know, with the aging, just going to take you back to that. So, yeah, I totally agree, Mackie. I really do. We could have been the Giants too. Just been modded yet again.
Yes.
So if you go to a planet, if you and I flew to a planet, just random planet, and they weren't kind of up to scratch, the people that were there, but you needed a bit of help, you could just genetically modify them to suit the task you want them for. Easy. They're going to be a little bit more adept at living there if you just make copies of yourself, direct copies, and make them live there. So what was the other thing Lloyd Pye said about the cheetah?
All the cheetahs are virtual clones of each other.
That's correct. So you could take the skin off one and sew it onto another and it would be fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That it's a half dog, half cat?
Yes.
It's susceptible to cat-only viruses and dog-only viruses?
Yep.
They haven't killed people.
There's not a single recorded case of a cheetah
Yeah.
attacking a human being. In
So
fact, the opposite.
Yeah.
They help human beings. Believe it or not.
So if you were a giant, yes, the cheetahs would be just like felines to you, like, pet cats.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally. So
100%.
it stands to reason that they were like kind of left here. Maybe not, maybe there was a couple of runaways, right? When they were here, when the Anunnaki were here, and that these were their pets. Because there's something really unusual about the breeding cycle or process of the cheetah also, where any cheetah offspring that doesn't necessarily match that of the parent's DNA is terminated naturally. So they're incapable of making any diversifications. They can't diversify. They can't change, random mutate into something else. Now that's kind of crazy.
That shouldn't be possible.
That's right.
Yeah,
and they have dog and cat fur at the same time. And their claws don't retract. The only ones, apparently, out of the feline species. So they have kind of dog paws. Isn't it all crazy?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's look, from what we know today about genetics and genetic engineering and those wonderful things, we would look at this if we came from it fresh and had no preconceived ideas anything, and we looked at the cheetah, like no prejudice, no, like I said, no
preconceptions,
none, zero. We would look at it and go, oh, gee, that's a interestingly modified animal there. It has characteristics of both dog and cat.
Mm-hmm.
Understand why. It makes for great hunting. The Egyptians, in fact, used the cheetah like a hunting animal.
That's right.
Okay, like when I say hunting, like a dog. They used it in the same way that we in the West or elsewhere would use a dog to hunt. And it has all the characteristics of a dog and all the some of the characteristics of a cat. And they've said it then. The only cat that doesn't have retractable claws. It is virtually impossible for the cheetah to be genetically different to what it is, even random mutations. And in fact, you know what scientists say? They say, oh, the cheetah went through a bottleneck event. That's why it's so homogeneous. Okay, now let's examine that for a second. When? Don't know. Let's say 100,000 years. Let's say 200. It doesn't really matter, right? Well, in that time, mutations should have come into genetic material. And okay, so there's a bottleneck event, and there's only one breeding pair left, and their offspring is genetically very close, and their offspring is because there are no other breeding animals, and all the offspring is genetically very close. Now, in humans, that normally leads to the Windsors, which is not a good thing. But all jokes aside, it's not a good thing. Inbreeding is not good because it leads to defects and faulty wiring and all kinds of things, right? Not in the case of the cheetah. But not only that, eventually, though, you'd think that mutations would come into it and the breeding population would diversify naturally because of the mutations that would inevitably happen.
That's right.
To the genetic material, even in a very limited breeding environment. Over time, as you had more and more members,
that's right,
you just get more and more genetic diversity. But no, like they've just said, it seems though it's actively discouraged. What? That doesn't sound like evolution.
Well, if you made a creature that we were entirely happy with, if you made one, you would also do that function.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? I would.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to revisit this again.
No, 100%. Think about that first. we are so advanced in our science that we make these modifications, and because there will be genetic drift. Doesn't matter what you do, it eventually just will. Like, I'll give you an example. Pigs. Domesticated pigs. You let them run wild, within a couple of generations, they're wild pigs again.
That's
with
right.
the fur and the tusks and everything.
Yep.
That happens, okay? Wild pigs. Domesticated. You have to keep them domesticated in order for them not to go feral, as it were. Okay?
Oh, hello, mainstream media keeping us domesticated.
There's that, right? Yeah, whereas, of course, the cheetah, no. Cheetah has been living wild for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, yes, they used to be kept as domesticated animals with Egyptians, but not for a long time. Now, right? So it's really, see, this is really what fascinates Dave and I. It's these conundrums, these riddles, these puzzles, the mysteries. They don't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. And we are steered away from it. I told you before what my teacher told me about the double slit experiment. Light is both a particle
and a wave.
Just write that down to be in the test. Yes, sir. Can do. Never mind the implications. Never mind that. What implications? What are you talking about? Crazy fool. Yeah.
But that's all that experiment proved, wasn't it?
That's it. Yes. Okay.
If you only read it with one eye open and only read half the text, yeah, sure.
It's amazing how quickly we can trivialize something truly astounding. And I know my kids are too young to fully appreciate it. But when they're old enough and when they ask me, I will tell them. I will tell them as much as I know, and if I don't know, we'll go and find out together. But the Wall of China was not built to keep out the rabbits. I can tell you that. That's not something I'm going to tell my kids. Because it is your duty as a parent, or carer, or guardian, or whatever have you, to give your children, your wards, your dependents, the best information that you can give them when they ask a question. That's your job. If you don't know, you can say that. I don't know. Let's find out together. Easier today than ever before. But then again, it takes a bit of, as Dave has proven, with Google, it does take a bit of doing now to make sure you get the right answers. And don't just rely on Google. Yeah, the first was it 4 pages, whatever it was.
Yeah, 2 pages. You get 2 pages of unique responses, and then for the next 18 pages until it just decides not to provide you any more of the billions of responses that it got to your search. For the next 18 pages, you just get recycled different random versions of the same links that you've already got in the first 2 pages. You can't go to page 3 and get a different link. Doesn't matter what you search for. I don't care if you search for the thing that is the only page that you've put on the internet just to search, you'll still get, right? If you made 1,000 pages, then you'll still get just 2 pages worth of links, be sponsored links, and then the rest of the 18 pages in the 20 will all be the same stuff.
That's soul destroying, man.
They don't want you to do any more than that, than 2 pages. I'm sure alarms would go off in the Google headquarters. Oh my God, they pressed on the 20th page link.
What? Send a team. Send a team now. What are you doing? Are you asleep?
You know that they had to go to 18 copies of that same link to get to that one. Yes, I'm fully aware of that, sir. Who was it? And they can tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that time, Eki, you went overseas and you used an internet cafe? You were just telling me, using a search engine, and it started playing the same ads. You didn't log in. It identified you.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's I told you a story with my mother-in-law. She speaks Vietnamese. She's not Vietnamese, but she speaks it, and she was near my phone. She spoke it for the next 3 days. All I get is Vietnamese ads on my home computer as well, mind you.
Yeah, yeah.
Complete. Whereas that's where the algorithm went completely
Yeah,
wrong.
buddy. That's the one.
Hey, I don't know what you're saying. Give me English back.
That's when I said to my friend on the way home today, I told him that a movie title is so sexy, um nein zu sagen. So I told him that in the hope that that would affect his ads. Will, um, what's this? Read this space. Watch this space. Let's watch this space for an update on that one.
Jeez. See, it's at every turn we're discouraged to ask the uncomfortable questions. At every turn we're told, "Oh, that's just crazy. Don't waste your time with that. Oh no, we don't want to study this, and we're not going to put any funding into that."
Mm-hmm.
Now, if whenever you hear that, you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody somewhere is researching exactly that with a whole bunch of funding. Okay, some bunker where they never see the light of day. But yeah, there's an active movement, an organized effort to make us look the other way, to make us look somewhere else, to make us do something else. I mean, it starts really simply, Dave. How much money can you make doing this?
That's right.
Oh, not a lot. Yeah, that's not for you, sonny boy. That's not for you. And once you've actually bought into that, let's say you stop following your passion, because that's what happened to me, right? So you stop following your passion and you just went for the money, right? That's a slippery slope, because that's all you will do from there on in. I'm telling you. If you follow the money, right, no matter, in your head, it doesn't matter what I do as long as I get more money. That's what you keep telling yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we should. Yes, we should. Maybe I will. Let's do that. Why not? Let's do that. But you lose sight. And that's why I asked Dave the question earlier. How do you center yourself, right? Because you get swept away in all this complete nonsense, in this BS of completely unimportant things, right? Work. This happened at work, or that happened with a neighbor, or something else happened here, and before you know it, you're in a spiral of negative emotions. You can't help yourself because you've bought into it. You've bought into it. You got to pull yourself back, and I'm just as bad as the next guy, maybe worse, because I know better, or I should know better.
Mm-hmm.
I still fall into it, man, every time.
Yeah, well, it'll do it. It captures you. If you're in a certain mindset, that's all that happens, and you don't want it to be an ever tightening noose of repetitive thought about the same thing. Fight really hard for that, to straighten that line out. Don't make it a noose, right? That'll eventually do you in. That's bad. That's really bad. Find a way to be able to break the cycle, and then you should be able to get through it. I think we've got 1 minute left.
Is that right?
Yeah, just the one. Just the 1 minute.
Oh, jeez. Oh, dude. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Look, hopefully you found some of these ramblings illuminating. Hopefully some of it resonated with you. But it is really important to find your center and focus on the things that are important. That's important. Double Dutch. It's important to focus on the things that are important to you, to your family, to your loved ones, whatever that might be. But I tell you, it's not chasing the dollar. It's not having a bigger TV or a better car. It's none of that. None of it. I'm pretty certain, right? Because yes, money can give you choice and even buy a certain happiness, but unless you still have a soul left, what's the point? What's the point of any of it? Okay, look, this has been Plato's Cave. Thank you so much for inviting us into your life for this hour. We should be back on Thursday, all things being equal. Last Thursday, I do apologize with some technical difficulties, but they seem to be compounding. But don't go away. There will be something on, and we will also see you on Sunday with the shiny side out. That's right. So, but most of all, be safe.